Music has just always been a part of me. I grew up in a very musical family. My dad sang. My first time singing was actually with him.
For me, it started as a hobby, a place to channel my energies, and then it slowly grew into a job. It's always been an individual or a mentor that's pushed me from each stage. I think now it's a calling.
I would say what made me want to pursue it was realizing that I think it was God's purpose for my life. And it was something I just realized pretty recently, too. It wasn't something that I had been working towards all my life. I was actually in school to become a speech pathologist. Some things happened, I guess. A series of events happened within the past couple of years that showed me that God wanted me to pursue music.
When I was headed to college, I was going to college for engineering school, and my mom kind of whispered in my ears and said, "Son, you have to do music." And she really knew deep down where my heart was. And that sort of echoed back 4 years later. My wife, Anika, has asked me a few questions in my life, probably the scariest questions I've ever heard. I remember I applied to Berklee Music School, didn't get in, and she asked me, "Elton, why don't you just learn yourself, learn on your own?" I was incredibly frightened by that, but I was glad she asked me that. It's a simple question, but it forced me to figure out a system of learning. It's been several influences along that have grown me and my love for music.
I first got involved with Refuge at the beginning of 2022. So what had happened was we were just chilling in the tech room at the church that I was at previously, and Kenneth came in. He asked us if we knew anyone who would be willing to help out at his church. I couldn't think of anyone off the top of my head, but I told Kenneth that I would, let him know if I knew of anyone. And I remember the moment he left, Elton turned to me and was like, "You should do it."
It was maybe out of self-preservation, I'll be honest. I was burnt out. I'd been in that particular role of music director for maybe 10 years at that point, and also seeing Melody and the growth and the journey she was on, and realizing that she had more energy and more potential than I did in that moment. So I don't know, it just sort of blurted it out. I don't regret doing it at all.
And so then by the next week, we meet again at church, and I asked Kenneth if he's found anyone yet, and he said no, he hadn't. And so then I said, okay, I guess I could help you guys out for like 3 months. Then 3 months ended up becoming 6 months, and then 6 months became 9 months, and then 9 months turned into me moving my membership. I was still so new to being a music director. I had a great mentor, and I definitely prayed a lot. I knew that I had to trust in God to get me through it. It was something that was just completely out of my comfort zone. And now I realize that I think it was something that God knew I needed. There were so many people at Refuge who had a heart for worship. Being surrounded by all that support, by all of these people, helped me want to just pursue music further in Refuge and help cultivate that within the church.
I want creatives to have a voice, Adventist creatives as well, especially, because I know, especially from teaching, that there's a lot of them that have the twinkle in their eye, but just don't know how to turn that into a sun. You might feel like it's not okay to dream or become what you feel it might be your calling. I do feel like there's a space where the music ministry gives life to that. I see the work at Refuge providing a blueprint for example, being a worship leader, an AV tech, and being really good at what you do and glorifying God doing it at the same time.
What we're trying to achieve at Refuge with the music, at the heart of it, really just worship. Through the music we've done at Refuge, we've connected with people from different denominations, just different walks of life. We're able to just come together because we're working on one goal, which is worshiping God and leading people to Jesus.
I love to learn, and I love different perspectives, and I think music doesn't have one vein. Meeting people from different faiths, worshiping with them, you learn their perspective on God. You learn how they relate to God. And I think that just broadens, at least for me, it's always benefited my view and my relationship with God, my relationship with music as well. It just teaches you to love people without prejudice, really.
Regardless of what church I'm singing at, in the end, there's always one person that will come up to us. And sometimes it'll be after a set that we didn't even think went well, like we were too focused on the technicalities or the logistics of it. And then in the end, there will be someone who comes up to us and tells us how meaningful that song was that we sang or whatever. And then we're suddenly like brought back to earth and we're like, oh my goodness, yeah, like that's the whole point of all of this. Music aside, it really is just the friendships that we've built with each other that bring other people in. I think that's how we've connected to people that we just might not know at the time, or who might not even know, who Refuge is or who we are, but God ends up bringing us together with them. I think with every song that I sing, or just every song that I'm a part of, it allows me to be vulnerable with God in a way that is hard for me to be when music is not involved.
I think it's probably the first place I connect. Hymns and their lyrics have this powerful, for me, move my soul in a way that nothing else does, really. And in those moments, whether it's singing with a congregation or alone, where just listening to a song and you just are tearing in this moment because you feel the presence of God, or you feel the meaning of the words in those moments. I think those are moments that God reconfigures you and, at least for me, has constantly pushed me in His direction.
I think the past 3 years have included some of maybe like the lowest and darkest points of my life. When I look back on it, I realized that music and being put into these leadership roles that I'm in now, and having people believe in me and trust me to be put in these roles, it all came at the most perfect time and helped bring me out of that darkness, I guess. In the end, I realize honestly that God's timing is perfect, that everything works out for good. The person that I was 3 years ago probably would never have guessed that I would be where I am right now, or doing what I'm doing now.
COVID and George Floyd was a particularly dark time for me. And I do remember in those moments finding healing in songs of experience of people who have persevered. So I think for me, music, and particularly black music in that moment, gave me a sense of rejuvenation, empowered me again, showed me again, or you could say taught me to love my skin. It's hard to explain, but I think it just gave me life all over again.
I want people to see that there isn't just one way to worship God. I've grown up in a culture where maybe worshiping God the way that I do now wasn't, the most popular thing at the time. What I always tell my friends, or what I always tell my team is, if we were gonna raise our hands at a concert, why wouldn't we raise our hands for God? I just want to show people that, it's okay to worship, it's okay to be expressive, to show others how much you love God or how much you're grateful for Him. In the end, God deserves it all.
I think obviously in those moments you're feeling this euphoria. You just hope that the people around you are feeling the same thing you are, and most of the time they are. And those moments are so amazing, I think, because there's a bond in there that's hard to describe. It's hard to duplicate in any other space than music in those moments. So
Worship to me is ultimately surrender. Songs aside, feelings aside, lights aside. In the end, I realized that just every song that I sing is a moment, an encounter with God, and I'm not just singing words that don't mean anything. And every time I sing them, I try to relate, my own experiences to what the words are saying in a song. There are times where I maybe don't feel like worshiping, or I feel like maybe I'm not worthy enough to bring him worship. But then I think about just everything that he's done to help me, to lead me, to guide me, just everything that I've been through. And I realize I have to just surrender the negative thoughts that I might be having at the time and just worship.
worship is everything. It's a lifestyle. It's a constant decision to come back to the why we do this. And it's to worship our Creator and at the same time be a conduit to better humanity.